All right, everybody. So I took a couple days off from the utility trailer camper build, and but I have done quite a bit of work since, and I just want to give you guys a little update. Usually I release these videos on Sunday, but hey, today seemed as good as any, and it's been a little while since I've been on here, so I wanted to keep you guys updated. Let's go move to the car. All right, so my anticipated tow vehicle will be my Subaru Outback here. This is the Wilderness Edition. This is a 2024. Now this has the a turbocharged 4-cylinder. I believe it's a 2.4 liter, and they have a rated tow capacity of 3,500 pounds. So my goal for this trailer is for this to be under 1,000. So obviously this Subaru will have plenty of capacity left over. But one of the things I had to do is I had to put on a tow hitch, which I did put on. It took me about 2.5 hours. The actual mounting of the hitch, you had to drop part of the exhaust, but it overall wasn't too bad. The hardest part though was getting the trailer wiring hooked up. They had a plug-in which was inside of the hatchback area here, and I couldn't find an exact description of where it was, so I had to pull off a bunch of the body panels. Long story short, I found it. There's a little electronic module that you have to plug into it, which will bring it down to a 4-pin connector. But all in all, that was done. And talk about saving money. The dealership wanted over $1,200 to put on a hitch. I bought this hitch and the module for about $180 total. Like I said, about 2.5 hours of my time. But we got the hitch on the car. And I actually hooked up the trailer and took it for a little ride. Now, I should have done a video or something. I didn't think about it. But in short, the trailer, let's get out of the wind here. Sorry about that, it's a little breezy out here. But in short, the trailer towed really, really well behind the Subaru. I didn't go too crazy. I just drove just surface streets. I only got it up to about 45 miles an hour. So I don't want to talk too much about how it performed, but I will say largely I almost didn't even notice it was there. The biggest reason why I would notice it was there was the trailer at this stage of the build had very low tongue weight, so at lower speeds it would rattle quite a bit on there. But I'm very optimistic. I think the Subaru, obviously one of my goals of all my builds is to have a real low impact on drivability, and my first initial impressions is I think the Subaru is going to pull around this trailer, and outside of maybe some really extreme circumstances, I think you might not even notice it. But a couple exterior changes on trailer. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll move in inside where I've got kind of an experimental thing I'm doing, which I really like though. All right, so if I recall from the last video I did, I'm gonna go wide angle here, I had not mounted the door yet. So let's talk about that. I think I had showed the door though. So this is the door with all the finish on it. These decorative little lattice design, that's totally artistic. There's no meaning behind it. It's not any kind of known symbology on my part. I just was kind of playing around, and but I like it. We've talked about the security hinges, very important. Standard combo door lock, and I guess you just call these door stops. If there's more technical terms, someone let me know. But I ran these all the way around. And I prefer not to run seals, but the door is made to where it just sits completely flush against those. And listen to that door shut. This thing turned out really, really nice. That thing just shuts nice and perfect, nice and square. I was really happy with that one. And over here, I actually made a little table. So there is going to be a sink and a little countertop cooking space inside. But obviously, if it's a nice day out when you're using this camping, it'd probably be preferred. So I made this table, and I'll fold this up in a second, show you how this works. Let me touch on this stove real quick. So as you guys see the stove on here, this is probably kind of one of the primary intended purposes of this little outside table, is you could set up a stove. This is a Ogery brand, O-G-E-R-Y. Fits on there real well. This is a clam style fashion, so it folds up onto itself. Sorry, I got the little grates right there, but this would fold up right here. And this is a stove that I will use in the camper. I just got it set up out here for mock-up purposes here, though. Little propane stove, but this is kind of an ideal use for something like this. I'll include a link down in the description if you guys are interested in this one. This is one I recently got, and I actually really like this little stove. But so this little outside table for outside cooking like this. I'll carry a stove, this particular stove here, so you can transfer it out here and use it. And then inside, like I've always done, well, actually, I don't want to show you guys inside yet because I guess it's kind of a secret what's going on in there. But I'll have a counter space in there, and if I wanted to cook inside or heat up something inside, I could also just fold this up and take it in there. So this stove will really serve kind of a dual purpose. But let's get this stove off of here, and I'll talk a little bit more about this table. All right, so this is the table right here without the stove on it. Now, you guys probably recognize these hardware here. Now, I do have them mounted kind of upside down to what they're traditionally used, but I had a unique problem here I had to solve, and these actually seem to be just strong enough upside down. The problem was if you're standing on the outside of the trailer, I wanted this table, I didn't want it super high, I wanted it low enough so you could work from it. Now underneath here, I mounted the diesel fuel canister because I will have a diesel heater in this, but it created a problem to where I couldn't keep the table real low, so I had to put it up a little bit higher. So let's fold this up and you guys will see. So this just folds up like this. It's got some magnets and it just sits like that. So when you're driving, or if you're not using the table, it folds up like that. So I think you guys could see the problem, though, is because I had a space issue here. If I folded the table up traditionally, it would sit this high. So I just reversed those hinges. They seem to be strong enough on both directions. Folds up like this, just held in place with a magnet. Take it down, you just firmly pull it. Another advantage of mounting that mounting hardware, let me show you how that mounting hardware works here if you're not familiar with these. Kind of upside down, so to speak, is when it locks in place, to lift it, you have to click those things. And in a windy day, I can imagine where that'd be an advantage, because I've sometimes out in the desert here, sometimes that wind can whip up. And if this didn't lock when it was in a downward position, I can imagine wind getting up underneath this and pushing it around. So that actually worked out really well. Kind of an unconventional use of those hinges, but it worked. Not wired in yet, but put an outside light right here so that will illuminate right down on the table. And I also mounted 2 tail lamps here. Those are wired in with the trailer. The lights for the trailer itself, they also work. But this will give me running, brake, and turn signals in the upper portion. And I think this was done last time, but we got the AC mount. Okay, let's move on inside. All right, so of course the inside is going to look like a mess for a while because we're in mid-construction. So I'm kind of doing, well, let's go this route here. So I'm kind of doing both insulation install and electrical kind of the same time. So if you guys recall from Camper 8.0, this is kind of my own homemade electrical setup here. That's 2 150 amp hour batteries. Then they plug in, so both the batteries and this head unit separate. And this head unit has the inverter, has a cooling fan, it has circuit protection, etc. This one's a unique one to where I made it to where it actually has dual solar charge controllers. So what you guys can see in that right corner back there, that is the wires coming in from an external port. Let me show you that real quick here. Which is wired in right down here at the bottom of the trailer. This happens to be a ZAMP plug. And what that allows me to do is I can plug in a portable slash foldable solar panel. If you guys watch my channel for a while, you guys know I've been a big fan of those. And in addition, I have my 200 watt panel, which is mounted up here on the roof. Comes through my little waterproof connector there. And obviously the wires aren't tidied up right now, but that comes into there. So the advantage of that is because I have the dual solar charge controllers, I can actually have 2 independent and dissimilar solar sources coming in at the same time to charge that battery bank. And in my opinion, I think that is a really, really big deal. So for example, this 200 watt one on the roof here is going to be gathering energy all the time. Even though right now it's actually tilted to the north, it still gets, I still get about 100 to 120 watts coming in out of it. Actually, let's see what it's pulling right now. I actually think, is that 132? Is that what I see? Yeah, 132 watts. That's pretty good for actually pointing to the north a little bit. So that will always be producing solar energy. But if I needed a little bit more, say for example, if I run the AC here, I have a couple 400 watt panels I could plug into the auxiliary plug and simultaneous charge both batteries. Or if you wanted to park the trailer in the shade or something like that, you could just take a portable solar panel, plug it in the auxiliary port, and run it out. Anyways, I've talked about this a lot in my channel, but I think it's a really big deal, and I'm basically setting up this one the same way. So, in my opinion, the first place to start with all electrical is getting the fuse box mounted, which that will be the approximate location. And the electrical work is kind of mid-process. I'm kind of doing both insulation and electrical at the same time. But the first outlet is I got the fan hooked up, and I've been pretty much running that fan 24 hours a day. Especially in a small area like this, there's a lot of fumes and everything that build up between adhesives. I sealed the inside of as you guys can see right here, I sealed the inside of the cedar boards with the same finish that I used on the outside. And even though it's been, a week and a half, 2 weeks since I did that, you could still, if you close this thing up and you open it a couple hours later, you could still smell it. So I've been keeping the windows open, just running that vent fan. Plus there's going to be some glues and stuff like that, just to try to get everything, all the smells and all that stuff kind of exhausted out of here. Okay, so let's talk about insulation. So I'm using EPS, expanded polystyrene foam board insulation, in most of the wall surfaces, as you guys see. For now, I just have them cut, but these will be wrapped in fabric, just like you guys have seen all the way going back to my second build. I'm trying to use up some materials I had on hand. I kind of ran out, but I'm not going to buy any more. These sections right here and back here are going to be behind cabinets, and this section here, I actually had enough to fill in some pieces there. But these parts I haven't got done. I'm going to use that Thinsulate. Let me show you what Thinsulate it is. And again, probably a lot of you guys have seen this. They've been watching my channel for a while. But Thinsulate is popular in the van building community. I found it when I was working on my van build. I really like it. It's a 3M product. Obviously, it's flexible. What you do is you use a spray adhesive, which is Super 78. Let me show you that can. I think I got one in here. Or no, I'm sorry. Super 90. Super 90. You spray it, and then you take that white fluffy side, and you actually, so you would, for example, when I do this, I'll spray the adhesive in here, and then you take the fluffy white side, and you actually stick it on there. The EPS panels are just going to be friction fit. Now, let's talk about what I'm doing. So, now it's not showing up really nicely in this camera image here, but it actually looks a lot better in person, and I think it'll look a lot better when it's finished. But from an insulation standpoint, I had a very unique problem because that front cap right there has that curve in it. I'm not saying it's impossible to use the EPS, but it would have been a pretty big task. I mean, you would either have to cut it up, or I'd have to take a bunch of 1/2-inch sheets and laminate them over each other. So what I did is, and this was kind of an idea I just thought of, and I'm really liking it though, is I actually took the Thinsulate, and before I installed it, I cut it to shape, of course, and then I took a fabric, and believe it or not, that fabric that you guys see right there is just canvas. It's the same white drop cloth canvas that I used when I did the PMF job on the roof. It's got kind of an off-white tone. The batch I picked up was really clean, really consistent. And, you know, I thought white for the roof and the front cap would work out really well, kind of give it a bigger feel in here. This is the first time I've used a lighter color material like that. But anyways, I cut the Thinsulate to shape, and then I just sprayed Super 77 spray adhesive on the black part and spread the fabric over it. And then I sprayed the Super 90 on that back wall and just slowly attached the Thinsulate and the fabric to it. And then once I had it in place, if you guys look carefully there, you guys can see, and the EPS is covering up in the corners, but I actually stapled the edges of all of that canvas right to the structural parts I have there and in the center. Now the center doesn't look pretty. There will actually be a strip of trim that will actually go right up the center and split it there, so that little seam that you see in the middle will be concealed. And then I went ahead and did that in the roof, and of course these beam sections, there will be a piece of trim that goes over that and tidies it up. And of course I've got my vent fan thing and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of little cosmetic things that need to get done. Kind of an unconventional use of Thinsulate and how to cover it. I'm taking a cue from how I've done the EPS, but I actually really like it. Now I understand in this video it looks a little bit wrinkly and kind of a little odd, but in person it actually looks a lot better. And I think once I get the fabric on these sides and everything and the trim in place, I think it's going to give it a really, really unique look. And it really helps solve that problem of keeping the weight light, yet insulating the inside of this here. And it's really nice. I mean, obviously, as you guys can imagine, it's soft right here. And up here in these areas above this head part here, that's a real advantage, because if you guys remember, this is only like 62 inches high in here. So I'm a pretty short guy. I'm only 5'8". But like, say, for example, right here, there'll be the countertop space. And so like, say if you're cooking, for example, or cutting up something or whatever, for me, for example, I can stand and almost stand straight up, just kind of crook my head forward a little bit. And this nice, fluffy, soft space here, you know, if I hit my head on that, it's going to just kind of, it's going to be a pretty comfortable, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's pleasant. It's nice to have a wall surface that actually moves. And I think for a roof material, that's going to work out well. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a pretty cool technique here, and it might be something that I incorporate if I have any further builds in the future. So, and it solved a unique problem. So you guys just keep checking in, and we'll see how this turns out. But I think it's going to look real nice once everything else in here gets finished up. And I've been rambling for a while, but I think that's about it, guys. So by next week's video, my main goals are to finish getting all this insulation in, get the fabric covering on the EPS panels, get the rest of the electrical. One other note on the electrical, roughly speaking, I'm going to have a channel down there and a channel up here to where it's going to be kind of a utility area. So instead of trying to run all my wires to the walls, I'm actually just going to run wires just down on both of these sides here. There'll be some stuff that goes up like this one. So it makes it a little bit easier to tie in the electrical. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and we're making some good progress.